Number 14, Chris, we're back.
Hey, Ted.
Reasonable measures. Do you like that name still? I used to love the name. I'm sure I
I
love it
still love
anymore.
it. It's a
You
great
still
name.
love it. Okay. Well, I guess you went to law school, man. I guess it makes sense that you love it. All right. Well, I'll deal with it. Okay. Today we're going to talk about, well, we're going to weave trade secrets in, but we're really going to be talking a lot about copyrights. And so I think where this discussion started when you proposed this idea was the idea that AI cannot be an inventor, right? So let's kind of start there because I think that's kind of the root of what we're going to talk about today. Um, so talk about that in terms of patent law and copyright law and decisions that have happened.
But and it's really even more fundamental. So the thought behind this topic was that people are creating these AI models and AI tools that can do amazing things. And part of that is when it does create something amazing, you want to be able to protect it. And what we're finding and what courts and statutes around the world are finding is that traditional ways of protecting things like new inventions or new artistic creations or even code don't work so well in the AI context. So it's really forcing people to rethink what kind of protection tools are even available in the first place. Because again, a lot of them that traditionally you'd use no longer are working the way that people want them to. So it's an interesting time in the field right now of you have these amazing tools that you've developed, spent time and money, and they can solve problems and then come up with a lot of amazing things. But without protection, it's very difficult to commercialize them. So that was really the genesis of this conversation.
Okay, so I'm going to try to break this down real quick. Three buckets in my mind. There's a model training, right? So creating the AI itself, yeah. There's invention or problem solving using the AI, and that manifests itself in something, right? That third bucket of, manifestation, I guess, right? That could be whatever. Could be an image, could be a new formula, could be whatever.
Could be music, could be a screenplay or a television show, could be many, many different valuable creations that historically were made by people. You know, people would spend time and effort to do these. But now with AI can make something similar or identical. So it's
Okay.
really this challenge of, what do you do? How do you deal with that situation?
Okay, so go backwards then to say in the old days, back when people used to
Yeah, a
paint,
couple of years
with
ago.
brush and stuff, that would be a copyrighted work, right? So if I wanted to reproduce, a Van Gogh, I should be paying some sort of a license fee to, the Van Gogh estate or something. Yeah?
That's right. So, there's lots of copyrighted things like, if you wrote a song for music, if you painted something, did a sculpture, wrote a screenplay for the next big movie, all of those things traditionally you would protect with copyright law and it would work well. Like copyright law was designed to protect those kinds of human created creative expressions. And life was easy.
Easy peasy. Okay. And so now I just hold on, let me go to, whatever chat GPT and create an image. And now I have an image that is not protectable by copyright law.
Correct.
Okay.
That's right.
So let's work backwards because when you told me and you said it in a way that sort of made me think I should have kind of known this case, which was the monkey selfie case. And okay, it's such a weird, idea that you sort of feel like, of course, I probably have heard that the monkey selfie case, but in all honesty, I'm not sure I have ever heard of the monkey selfie case. So why don't we go back in time, 2011, and talk about the monkey selfie case?
Well, you're in luck because it's a great story. Inherently, it's a great story. The images are really cute. But what I think is even more interesting, and the reason I brought it up a couple days ago, is it was remarkably predictive over what's happening with AI today, 20 years later, however many years it's been, 2011 was a long time ago. But the whole idea was this wildlife photographer was in Indonesia and either dropped his camera or a monkey grabbed his camera. Somehow these monkeys got a hold of his camera and doing what monkeys do, they started taking selfies of themselves with this guy's camera. And some of them, the images were super cute, like amazing, very cute, clever.
I'm looking at them. They're insane.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
they're
mean,
awesome.
they're really cool photos. And of course, it turned into something valuable and turned into litigation over who had control over these images. And the interesting thing is that this went to the US Copyright Office, and they took the position that copyright law does not attach because there was no human involved.
Huh. Yeah.
The courts and the Copyright Office were uniform in saying, copyright law protects human creations. And yeah, even though monkeys, they're clever and cute and all those great things, the law was not designed to protect monkey creations. And yeah, even the PETA organization got involved in federal court saying the monkey itself, like that particular monkey with the the finger on the trigger, owned the copyright. And by the way, PETA will kind of like be a custodian for
I
those
love it.
copyrights.
I love it.
There was all this drama around monkey selfies, but at the end of the day, the monkey didn't win. So, and actually, the photographer didn't win either because he was trying to say this is worth a lot of money, and he had visions of licensing and selling this image and making a ton of money. But ultimately, he was not able to do that because there was no copyright protection available. So, yeah, it's an old story, but it's one that I really enjoy thinking about. But again, the great thing is, yeah, that was 15 or so years ago, but that same concept is being used today with AI, where they're saying you can go into an AI prompt and say, generate a picture of a monkey on a bridge and whatever image you want. And in a matter of seconds, it will create an image for you based on what your prompt was. But still, a human was not creating that image. You basically made a request or a suggestion to the AI. And as a result, all of those images, any music, any screenplay, any of those things that traditionally would be protected as copyright get the monkey treatment. So all of these things that the AI is generating, and maybe the images are really nice. Like some of them are quite amazing, they're not available for protection under the copyright law because there was no human. So I think it's kind of remarkable that the monkeys predicted what would happen with AI copyright law 15 years later.
It's amazing. So I've been in a few discussions at conferences, some roundtables where there's this talk about, like there's a human intervention step, right? So I go let AI do its thing, and then I come in and I edit it manually, whatever that thing is. Yeah. Um, and and that might pass the sniff test. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it might, or at least has a better chance than just typing in a prompt and seeing what comes out. People are trying to make those human modifications in an argument to say it now qualifies for copyright protection. I think it's a decent approach. We'll see how well that plays out. But people are being forced to come up with creative workarounds because the law is pretty clear that humans have to be involved.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with patents. So there's been a couple of test cases where the AI creates a patentable invention, but the AI, under the same logic, cannot be an inventor. So you
Right.
have
Right.
this weird scenario where there's an invention, might be a valuable invention, but there's no inventor. And it's just like if I went to a research lab and say, wouldn't it be nice if there was a cure for pancreatic cancer? And then I walk away, that doesn't make me an inventor because all I did was suggest a problem or suggest a challenge. And the people in the lab, the technicians and RAs, are actually the ones that hopefully came up with the cure. So the exact same thing happens with AI, where you can prompt the AI for an invention, but you're basically issuing a challenge. And that's not enough to make you an inventor. And the AI itself is prohibited from being an inventor. So it's another kind of unexpected, messy situation.
Yeah, but so let's just poke on that for a minute. Like if you're in the lab and you're using some modeling software to help you figure out some whatever protein structure or fold or whatever, and it's like wow, there's the answer right there. And if I had just put pen to paper and figured out myself, I would go file a patent on that thing, right? Whatever that was that the
That's
computer
right.
helped me do. Um, I mean, practically speaking, and I don't know this because I'm a little far away from it at this point, but practically speaking, my sense is people are just taking that, you know, what what we would call in silico innovation, years ago, and say, okay, well, the computer told me this is roughly the answer, and I go do a little bit more testing. Well, that is the answer, so I'm going to go patent that thing, right? And so I guess is sort of the sniff test here that people feel like, well, there's enough human intervention at the latter part of that innovation process to say I should feel good about going and patenting this thing, even though the silicon really came up with the idea, you
Yeah,
know?
that's the idea, is that there's enough human involvement that they can file a patent application and feel good about it.
Yeah,
I think what will be interesting probably a few years from now is there might be patents that grant, but then in litigation, people find out that there was actually no human involved. So maybe you put your name or I put my name as inventor. The patent office is none the wiser because they don't know. But I can easily imagine litigations happening where it comes out that the entire invention was from an AI and the patent applicant basically misrepresented that there were human inventors. I think that's going to be a fascinating battle,
right.
and it will come in probably the next couple of years.
So I think the ultimate AI for the inventor AI product needs to self destruct every time it invents something, right? It's like, get rid of the paper trail.
That would help.
Can we can we file a patent on that idea? The self destructing AI inventor? It's a great idea.
There we go.
All right. Let's not
Give it some thought.
let's file
I'll
the
definitely.
patent before we air this podcast. All right. Okay, go up a level into training. So this is where there's and thank you for the monkey selfie background. That was helpful. And
It's great fun at parties.
the pictures are incredible. Like
Told
really
you.
incredible. In fact, since there's no copyright on those pictures, we'll use it on the cover of this podcast. Yeah.
Awesome.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Go for it.
Put a tangibly logo on his shoulder or something. So if we get into the training, this is where things have been very, very active in the courts very recently. So we've got a Feb 14, so less than a month, Thomson Reuters versus Ross Intelligence case. And this is on the argument that, hey, I can take all of this copyrighted information, can scrape the web for all this copyrighted information, and use that information to train my AI model, right? And I can do that under this sort of fair use doctrine. And what it appears as though the courts are saying is, no, you can't, right? You need to pay a license for that data to go train your model. So, so yeah, this is kind of hitting at every part of the sort of the value curve of IP, and we'll get to trade secrets. But any thoughts on what's going on in terms of fair use?
Yeah, it's actually a very hot topic. And both of the conferences that I went to this month, this is a big topic of discussion among the crowd. Yeah, and normally, like if you were going to use one piece of copyrighted material or five pieces to do something commercially, life is easy. So you would go and license them, you'd pay some fee or some royalty and go about your business. And people have been doing that for a very long time. The challenge now is for these kind of models that are being trained, the number of source materials is so astronomical. You know, you're looking at millions potentially of
Yeah.
input materials that you physically will not live long enough to go and license each of them individually. It's totally impractical or probably impossible to do things in a normal, good manner. So people have been making this argument of fair use basically as a way of avoiding the unclimbable hill of traditional licensing.
And maybe just for our listeners also, just fair use, just the quick and dirty on fair use.
Well, so fair use has to do with, you know, are there situations where you can use a copyrighted material that you would normally pay a license for, but you don't have to pay a license? So they're sort of like exceptions to what would normally require a license. And the people training these models are saying, yeah, if you require traditional licensing, you will kill AI models. Like AI models are just impossible to implement because the licensing burden is so incredibly high that you would just kill the whole field overnight. So, yeah, they're saying that's not really a good solution either because, you know, these technologies, everyone's excited, it has great potential, but the traditional view of licensing copyrighted materials kind of falls apart given the sheer volume of content that we're talking about.
Yeah, but there's a lot of discussion around some of these repositories of like massive,
Yep, that's right.
collections of copyright materials, right? New York Times, for instance, is one that's been, people talk a lot about yeah. So it does feel like it's really interesting to think about some of these businesses which are, on the brink of death. And it's like, wow, they actually may have a huge amount of value sitting in their copyrighted material going back 150 years or whatever, right?
Yeah, that's
Super
right.
interesting.
And the traditional print media, everyone has kept saying, "Oh, this is a dying industry; it'll be gone in a couple of years." And this might be a surprise lifeline for them.
Amazing. Okay, so let's just go real quick to now trade secrets, right? Because it wouldn't be reasonable measures without some discussion of trade secrets. So trade secrets, where does trade secrets fit here in your mind, right? In this
Well,
kind of value chain of AI.
I think trade secrets are really valuable in terms of the AI model itself and all of the input materials that go into training and just sort of getting information from a raw point to being an incredibly useful model. And all of that actually is very suitable for protection as trade secrets because they don't last long. They're evolving very quickly. You probably don't want to disclose all that information in a patent application. And the patent will take much too long, too slow to give you the kind of protection you need. So trade secrets are actually perfectly positioned to help protect the model itself and how that model was generated.
Right. Yeah, we had a customer call probably 6 months ago or something, and it was a really neat company, and they had done some substantially interesting stuff in this space. And yeah, they had I think what I might be willing to say, not the best patent attorney advice, and they put their entire training protocol in the patent, right? And then we're calling us to sort of say, hey, how can you help us with trade secrets? It's like, well, I'm not sure we can at this point. They had literally published, all their training protocols. And so it's like, yeah, you got to be very thoughtful about that stuff because and I think it builds, right? I mean, I think even if we look at our own AI models at tangibly, see like, it's relatively easy to get a model to do something. And it's kind of relatively easy to get a model to do something like pretty decent. It's really, really hard to get a model to do something repeatably first class, right? It's like, wow, things really performant. That just takes time. It takes knowledge of like, where you should be putting weights, where you shouldn't, what you should emphasize, all the cleanup that goes on over time. And yeah, there's really, unless it's altruistic and you're building something for the public domain, like there's no reason to tell anybody about any of that stuff, right?
Totally. Well, and I was meeting with a company 2 days ago, and they specifically did not want to patent. Like they realized that patent just would not give them the kind of value or protection that they needed, and they thought correctly that trade secrets is a better choice for them.
Yeah. Yeah. Super interesting. All right. Wow, this is cool. It's funny. As you were talking about the monkey selfie, I was having this recollection. So a shout out to our old friend Vivek from IV. This was on a trip to India years ago. And first time I'd seen, monkeys running around the courtyard at some university, and I pulled out my phone to, take a picture, and the monkey kind of like came at me, and it was a rookie mistake. It didn't end up with a monkey selfie, but it scared the heck out of me, and so I put my phone away, and no more of that. So anyway, good memory.
Excellent.
All right, we'll see you next time, Chris.
Okay,
Good stuff,
thanks,
man.
and good talking.
Thanks.